Welcome to this retrospective slash review for Strider. In this video, I'm just going to give you some of my brief thoughts on the game, and it should be pretty quick because, like the game itself, it's actually very short. um, what I did in the background here is I went ahead and played through the game again normally as if I was playing it on a Genesis, so that basically I'm not using any save states or anything, just seeing how far I can get with the three continues that you are provided. And obviously I did give myself five players, but other than that, basically I'm keeping things fairly, standard as far as that's concerned. So as far as this game goes, basically, I want to say that I played it using the RetroArch and using the Blastum core on RetroArch, and the reason why I keep using that core is because it's a cycle accurate emulator for better or for worse, and there aren't any options in the game actually to speak of, with the exception of basically, there are no core options really. It's accurate to a fault to a certain extent. For instance, there are certain areas of the game where it will visibly pause as it, I guess, registers the fact that you've made it to a checkpoint in the game. So I don't know if other emulators would be better about that or getting rid of that aspect, because you could actually, say, overclock the CPU, which is something you can't do with Blastum. But this is, from what I can understand, probably a fairly accurate representation of the game on the Genesis. So from that perspective, that's good, and that's kind of how I wanted to play. I wanted it to be an accurate depiction, and apparently it is. So that's all good. Now the game itself, I think graphically looks very good. I definitely don't have anything negative to say about the graphics in the game. Compared to like the most recent Genesis game I play, I would definitely say that this game looks better than, say, eSWAT. And so it definitely has very good graphics. The music and the sound are actually also very good. I don't know if I would call it the greatest soundtrack or one of the better soundtracks I've ever heard, but it's a good soundtrack. I liked it. It's fairly memorable. But the game itself, the biggest issue I think most people will have with it is the controls. They're a little bit on the slippery side when it comes to jumping. The actual, the controls themselves are pretty simple. A or C to jump, B to attack, which is pretty much my standard control scheme that I like to use for these types of games. So I'm glad that they went that way, which is also good because there's no options in the game to change your control scheme if you want to do something different. So if you're someone who has a different type of control scheme that you'd like to use, you're kind of out of luck, really, as far as this game is concerned. So lack of options is definitely a negative that affects this game as far as control is concerned. And also the whole jumping aspect of the game, it just feels a little bit slippery, for lack of a better word, basically. It's very slippery, and in a way, the jumping mechanic is very similar to, say, like the older Castlevania games, whereas if you start jumping in one direction, you're going that direction. There is no mid-point turnaround where you can try to change the trajectory of your jump. You're going that that way no matter what. So it's for better or worse, that is definitely an aspect of the game. A lot like some of those older Nintendo games, if you get hit, you lose control over your character, and in some areas of the game, like, that could really play against you as you just start rolling against your will and you just can't stop, and that could end up getting you killed very easily, and happened to me many times, especially like this time when I played through it again. So it happened a whole bunch of times. but that's neither here nor there. Um, but it does contribute to the slipperiness of the game itself. Um, but I mean, I think the biggest aspect of this game that would probably turn most people off, obviously, is the difficulty. The game is just frustratingly difficult at times. Um, yeah, I just the first four levels you can kind of figure out what's going on and get better at the stage, as it were, or get good. So I don't want to fault it too much for that, because there is definitely things that you can do as a player to get better at this stuff. But I feel like they amped up the difficulty on stage 5 in particular. They just went kind of insane on that one when it came to the actual difficulty of the game. And it was just definitely not to the point where I felt like, okay, this is a good challenge. I was just like, okay, this is getting ridiculous now. That's kind of how I felt at that point in time. So, it's like I said, it's a mixed bag when it comes to the difficulty. I don't want to say it's super hard, but it was definitely one of those things where I kind of threw in the towel and said, okay, that's it. I'm using save states just to beat the game. And that's what I ended up having to resort to. Is it a game that I think I could possibly beat without using save states? Maybe, but I'd have to play it quite a bit, to be honest with you. And that would entail basically, accepting the game for all its faults and saying, okay, that's fine, I'll deal with it. At the end of the day, I don't know if I like the game enough to even try to play through it again here to do that. Now, the best way of playing this game is for me usually, like I said, using RetroArch and getting the achievements on retroachievements.org. It just gives a little more replayability, but even there, the game itself doesn't have a lot of replayability because there's only 13 achievements on the site. So, yeah, you're not really getting a lot of replayability, even if you do it that way. This game is available on the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. In fact, this is one of the first 2 games that came out on that expansion pack that was unique to the Nintendo Switch, because you couldn't buy this game in, say, the Genesis collection on Steam, for instance. So legally, about the only way you have of playing this game is via the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. The game did come out on one of the Sega Genesis minis. I think the first one, if I'm not mistaken. But those are very hard to come by and very rare. So chances of you getting one at a good price is also, non-existent. So legally, if you want to play this game, Nintendo Switch Online is the only choice you have. Now, I haven't actually played it on Nintendo Switch Online, so I don't know how well the emulator there works, but I'm sure, like most Nintendo emulators, it's fairly bare bones. It'll just give you like rewind features, the ability to make save states, and that's probably about it. I'll probably look it up later just to see, but that's pretty par for the course when it comes to Nintendo emulators. So I wouldn't hold my breath for anything better than that, really. But yeah, if you want to play the game legally, that's definitely an option to look at doing, and I would encourage you to do it that way. Assuming maybe Capcom would actually come out with this game in the future, possibly. They do have a pretty good history of coming out with a lot of their older games on, collections. But at this point in time, there is no collection that has this game. Now, would this game be a selling point to get said collection? I don't know. Like I said, this game doesn't seem to have the negative. See, that's a good example of me just spinning uncontrollably for a while there for some reason. Anyway, this game doesn't seem to have the negative press that, say, eSWAT had, which I find interesting because I would feel that this game would have a much more negative um, reputation in the community than eSWAT, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And not really sure why, because I personally felt like I had more fun playing eSWAT. eSWAT had more levels as well. And yeah, I just, yeah, I'm not sure why this game has as good a reputation as it does. I mean, possibly because of how pretty it is, because it is a very good looking game. I mean, I definitely can't take that away from it. It's a good looking game, but uh, frustratingly difficult. And, you know, that's, yeah, that's basically my thoughts on the game. So as far as the score is concerned, this one I'd probably give this one a 70%, to be honest with you. I just felt like it was almost more frustrating than it was fun. And at the end of the day, that does impact the game quite a bit. So yeah, I think it's, you know, not even just the fact that, you know, for its time or anything, it's just frustrating to be frustrating. And in my opinion, that's not really a a feature to a game that I go looking for, to say the least. I would much prefer my games to be more fun than frustrating. I don't dislike a good challenge, but this game is not so much challenging as it is frustrating. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the game. Pretty decent. If you have Nintendo Switch Online, give it a shot, and you might actually enjoy it more than I did, but I personally felt like the game itself was just more frustrating than it needed to be. Anyway, that'll do it for this video. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Take care.